Did you forget about this woman in the 90s who got so mad at her husband she waited till he was asleep and then she cut off his wiener? Now her name's Lorena. She's 20 years old, she's going to college in Virginia, and one day in 1988 she meets this dude, John Wayne. And John Wayne's 22 and he's a Marine, and they hit it off and they fall in love and everything is going great. And about a year later, they get married. And this is actually a picture of them on their wedding day. And look at them. I mean, they seem to be really happy. Until. Here's the thing about his marriage, though. It actually ends up not going too well. John Wayne gets discharged from the Marines, and then he has trouble finding steady work, so Lorena has to become the provider, and this stresses them out. And they end up fighting all the time. Plus, John Wayne likes to drink. Like, a lot. And that's not really a good combination. And about a month into their marriage, boom, he starts being abusive, physically. Like he shoves her and he punches her sometimes. It's awful. And so their fights start to get really bad, to the point where they call police on each other. Then, to make it worse, she ends up getting pregnant. And he doesn't think she would make a good mother, so he allegedly pressures her to get an abortion. And she does, and then she resents him over it. So basically, he's really abusive and their relationship is toxic as hell. And all this goes on for several years, until she's around 24 and he's around 26. And it's at this point that they've both hit their limit, and they've had enough of each other. And she's trying to get a protective order against him while he is asking her for a divorce. So this marriage is basically over. It's on its way out. And that is when shit gets really crazy. Cause one night, it's 1993, and John Wayne, he's been out all night drinking at the bar, and bro is absolutely wasted. While Lorena, she's at home in the bedroom asleep. And so John Wayne comes home from the bar, and suddenly, boom, he busts into the room. And this scares Lorena, but he doesn't care, because that is when he pins her down, and he allegedly essays her. And then, afterwards, when he's done, he passes out in the bed. While poor Lorena, she's just disgusted and she's sick to her stomach, and so she leaves the room and she goes downstairs. I mean, she doesn't want to be around him. And she goes into the kitchen to get some water, and that is when she sees it, a large kitchen knife. So she starts thinking, fuck this guy. She is not going to be a victim anymore. She's about to get her revenge. So she grabs the knife and she heads back upstairs to the bedroom. And John Wayne, he's still asleep, passed out, drunk as hell, no idea what's about to happen. And that is when she pulls back the covers and she pulls his willy up and she takes the knife and ka-shing, she cuts it right off. And so she's standing there holding it. And John Wayne wakes up like, what the f***? But like, he's still so drunk that he doesn't even realize what happened and that his junk is missing. So he just lays there all confused like, whoa, what's going on? While Lorena, she's like, oh shit, and boom, she runs away with the schlong still in her hand. And she runs out of the apartment and she jumps in her car and skirt, she flees. Minutes later, she's speeding along the road, trying to calm down, and she realizes that she can't steer her car properly because she still has John Wayne's stupid wiener in her hand. So she rolls down the window and she throws it out of the car as hard as she can, and it flies through the air and it lands in a nearby field. Minutes after that, she arrives at her boss's house. Her boss is like also her friend. So Lorena gets there, she goes inside, and she's upset, and she's freaking out. And boss is like, what did John Wayne do to you this time? And Lorena's like, no, I cut off his pee-pee. And boss is like, we should probably call the police. And so boss calls the police and she tells them what happened. And police are like, okay, well just tell us where we can find it and we'll go look for it. And so around 4 a.m. in the morning, there's a gang of police officers out in this field combing through the grass looking around for a rogue wiener. And then around 4:30, finally they find it, lying on the ground. Apparently one of the officers accidentally stepped on it. Like, oops, oh hey, there it is. Here's the thing though, they don't know what to put it in, like what kind of container, like they've never done this before. So they go to a nearby 7-Eleven and they end up putting it in, and I'm not making this up, a hot dog box, one that looks like this. Meanwhile, John Wayne, he had a friend drive him to the hospital, and there he waits for the police to show up with his wiener so that doctors can reattach it, which he ends up going into surgery, and they do. They reattach it, and apparently it works fine. Regardless, bam, they arrest Lorena. And I don't have a mugshot of her, but here she is in real life. And so, all of this is happening in the 90s, and this story blows the fuck up. Because it's a crazy story, and it's in like every newspaper headline, late night talk show hosts are all making jokes about it in their monologues, Saturday Night Live is making fun of it. But here's where the story gets interesting. There are actually two crimes in this scenario. One is John Wayne essaying Lorena, and two is Lorena cutting off his glizzy with a kitchen knife. And each of these crimes has a separate trial. And John Wayne's trial goes first, and he's being charged with SA. And his trial is wild, because they're like holding up pictures of his wiener for the jury and everyone to see. It's absolutely insane. Now, keep in mind that all of this is happening during a time when the common sentiment was that if a husband SAs his wife, it doesn't really count as SA, because she's his wife. Yeah, I know, it's terrible. And at the end of it all, it seems like the jury agrees with at least some of that because he gets found not guilty. Then Lorena goes to her trial, and she's being accused of malicious wounding. And she gets on the stand, and she describes the abuse she had gone through, and lucky for her, she's also found not guilty by reason of temporary insanity. So neither of them see any real prison time for this. But then, after the trials, John Wayne apparently decides that he kind of likes the spotlight. So he just keeps going, taking every opportunity he can. He allegedly starts a band called Severed Parts that apparently doesn't go anywhere because I couldn't find much about it. Then he goes on to star in an adult film called John Wayne Bobbitt Uncut. And yes, you're looking at an actual scene from that movie. Then he goes on the Howard Stern show, where they apparently raise money for him to get penis enlargement surgery. And they actually do it. They raise the money and he legitimately ends up getting the enlargement surgery. Then he and his new wiener stars in another adult film. And it's called, and I wish I were making this up, Frankenpenis. Then, around this time, he gets convicted of battery for hitting his new fiancée, and he spends a few weeks in jail. A few years after that, he appears on WWE Monday Night Raw for some reason. And then a year later, bam, he gets arrested again, this time for battery charges against his new wife. And sometime after that, he has to get his penis enlargement surgery reversed. I guess there were some complications or it looked weird or something. And so he has surgery to get it back to his normal size. Bro did a lot. While Lorena, on the other hand, she kept more of a low profile. And later on, she actually goes on to found her own organization to help victims of domestic violence. And this is her talking about it on TV. She's blonde now. So yeah, good for her.